Hello, this is Getting Started with SharePoint Framework tutorial 4, HelloWorld Deployed CDN. This is one of those tutorials which are available from dev.office.com/SharePoint related on client-side web part development on SharePoint Framework. And this tutorial 4 has a dependency on the tutorials 1, 2, and 3, where we actually create the web part. And in this particular tutorial, we're actually going to package the web part and get it hosted from the CDN. And we're going to use the Microsoft Azure CDN in this case, and you can absolutely use whatever other CDN, what you might prefer as the hosting location for your web part. So let's actually jump right into the tutorial itself. So I'm going to flip to my Windows 10 machine hosted in Microsoft Azure. And in this case, I'm using my MSDN subscription. So I've created already a resource group for SPFX tutorials. And we're going to create the storage account and CDN configuration in here for us as part of this tutorial walkthrough. So let's start by creating us a storage account. So I'm going to add a storage account to this storage group, resource group. So here we go. We can actually see the storage account being available, and let's choose that one. And let's create one storage account for us to consume. And we need to use something which is unique. So I can actually use SPFX samples tutorials. Let's see if that's available. Nope. So let's actually tutorials 2. Oh, actually I cannot use that one. Samples tutorials as the unique URL. So this has to be unique URL. So if the URL is taken, you cannot actually use the exact same value what I'm using in here, but that should be fine. For at least for this demo, we can say that we have a green marker over there. So we're able to use that as the storage account name. So what I'm going to quickly do here is that I'm going to start a notepad. So I'm going to collect some of the needed values, which we kind of then save or use within the client-side configuration. We're going to use a typical setup of a storage account. So we're going to use a standard resource manager and read access is fine. A subscription is going to be my MSDN Ultimate. Resource group is going to be the one where I started creating this. If you could actually start by creating the storage account from here and choose a resource group, whatever is your preferred resource group for your environment. Personally, I'm located in Western Europe, so I'm going to use that one. Obviously, there's multiple other options available depending on your location. So let's click Create, and that's going to then create the storage account for us. It's going to take a while to actually get the storage account created. But we can go already to our resource group, and let's go to SPFX tutorials, and I can then see whenever the storage account is created in here. I'm going to pause the video again for the waiting times, so you don't have to actually wait for the things to get fully created. And there we go. There's our SPFX samples tutorial storage account, which has been now created. So now let's go to this storage account. We want to actually create a container plop. So let's actually select plop in here, and let's create a container for the plop itself. And this is essentially for storing our files then whenever we get them deployed to the CDN. So let's give it a name, something like HelloWorld web part, and we need to actually update the access type to be container. So let's choose that one, and let's click Create, and that's going to create then the container to my storage account, and that's already successfully created. So that was super fast. So to be able to access this storage account, let's actually close that one. I need to have the access key. So I'm going to copy the access key, which we're going to use then within our configuration in the client-side web part configuration to get access on the storage account. So I'm going to paste that storage key in the notepad, so I can actually use that one when we are deploying our web part to be available in the CDN. Now, the next step is then to actually create the CDN endpoint. So let's actually get that one created as well. So let me go to SPFX tutorials. This is my resource group, and in the here I'm going to click add, and let's actually add a CDN as the service. So there's our CDN, and let's create a new CDN to this resource group. So let's give it a name, something like SPFX Web Parts. Subscription is going to be my MSDN Ultimate, whatever you're using. We're going to use the SPFX tutorials as the resource group. Western Europe is the right location. And then I need to choose the pricing tier in here. So let's, for this particular usage, I can pretty much use whatever I want. So I'm going to use the standard Akamai, which is pretty much the cheapest option available. Let's select that one, and let's actually create that CDN profile to be available for us. And that's not going to take too long either. So it's going to actually create the CDN endpoint for us. But if we do have a waiting time, so I'm going to actually cut them out of the video, so you don't have to need to wait for that. Well, and we can say that the creation of the CDN profile has now started. And there we go. So deployment succeeded. Deployment resource group was successful. So let's go back again on our SPFX tutorials, and let's refresh. We can actually see our CDN profile being created in our resource groups. I'm going to close these ones because we don't actually need them. So let's go to the CDN profile, and then we need to actually add an endpoint to the CDN profile. And there's our CDN profile now opened up, so we can see the basic settings of the CDN, and then we need to actually create an endpoint to the CDN. So let's actually do that. So let's give this endpoint, for example, something like SPFX sample or SPFX tutorials. Let's see if that's available. There's a green marker, so it looks good. And then we need to flip the origin type as storage, because we're actually getting that from the storage account. Then origin hostname will be the SPFX sample tutorials. So let's actually select that one from my existing storage accounts. And the origin path is completely fine as it is, and there's our host header as well. So I'm going to copy some of this information once again to my notepad, so we actually get the right configuration available when we are accessing this information. And there we go, SPFX tutorials, Azure Edge.net, and let's click add for that one. At this point, we have the CDN basic setup available, and we also have the storage blob available, and that's now still creating. But while it's doing that, I'm going to go back on my storage account, and I'm going to just copy my blob name to my notepad, because we're going to use actually the blob name in the notepad as in the configuration as well. So here we go, and I'm going to actually put that one there as well. It was the HelloWorld web part as the configuration. Good. So let's go back on our resource storage and let's have a look on our CDN setup. And we can see that the endpoint is now available. There's our endpoint, the host name being SPFX tutorials Azure Edge.net. So there's our endpoint host name as well. So now we're actually pretty ready to go with the Azure setup. So we have a storage account, we have the blob where we want to deploy our JavaScript files and whatever additional assets. So we can actually move back on the solution side. So here we are in our client-side SPFX client-side web part solution, which we created in the tutorials 1, 2, and 3. And obviously I want to actually configure some of these settings, so I'm going to actually go to the Visual Studio side of that particular solution. So in the configuration folder, we have deploy Azure Storage JSON configuration, and this is really for if you are using the Azure CDN as the host. And here's where we need to actually get some information related on the configuration what we're having. So let's actually get all of this updated. So our plop was HelloWorld web part or container. So let's actually update that one. Our account was SPFX sample tutorials. So let's actually update that one accordingly as well. And then our access key, which is the access key for storage account, was that one. So let's paste that one in the access keys section in the deploy Azure Storage JSON. And now I'm actually, let's see if that's actually working properly. Yes, it is. It's in a single line, but when I'm actually moving, zooming in, it's going to actually flip that to multiple rows every now and then. So that's fine. I'm going to save the settings. So we're good to go from that perspective. Good. And then we're going to flip the configuration to ship mode. So gulp ship, and that's going to essentially do some initial settings. And it's gonna build the minified assets, which are then ready to be deployed to the CDN provider. So let's wait for that one to complete. And if we are interested, so let's actually have a look on what was generated as well. So if I go here and if we extend the temp folder, we have a deploy folder in here. And in the deploy folder, we can actually see the minimized JavaScript files and the assets which was going to be deployed to the CDN in this particular case. Good. Because we have the deploy Azure Storage JSON configured now properly, we can use predefined tasks, which is available for us. So let me actually slightly format again that one, and then I'm going to execute gulp and deploy Azure Storage. And what's going to happen now is that our files, which are in the folders, are going to be automatically deployed to the Azure Storage based on the configuration which we had in the deploy Azure Storage JSON. And as we can see, the upload was complete, so we're good to go from that perspective. Just if you're interested, you can absolutely use, for example, Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. So let me actually refresh this one. There's our SPFX sample tutorials. So let me zoom on that one. So there's the new storage account. I'm connected to my MSDN subscription. And if I extend that one, we can see in the plop containers that HelloWorld web part, and in the HelloWorld web part container, we can actually see those 3 files now being located. So these are essentially now ready to be hosted in the CDN. So, or they're waiting us in the storage plop, which is already a good start. Now, if we would only just deploy the package again directly to the SharePoint, it would still actually configure, or it would still point that URL to the local host. So we need to actually get that one configured as well. So let's actually go to config folder and write manifest JSON. And this is where we have CDN based path. And this is where we need to actually get an updated URL, which is pointing to the new location. In our case, that URL will be, let's actually copy the stuff from here. It is that one. So let's actually start fixing this. It was the Azure edge.net is the address. So https SPFX tutorials Azure edge.net, and then the actual plop or container name. And in our case, I'm going to actually take that one from the notepad as well. So I'm not actually failing that. So, and there's our container name as well. I'm going to save the settings. Saved. We're all good to go. And then we can actually repackage the solution. So let me go in my command prompt. And then I'm going to run gulp bundle ship. And this is going to then repackage or refresh the assets. And then we're going to do the typical package solution after this one. Just making sure that every setting, for example, that URL setting has been reconfigured to our bundle. So gulp package solution /ship. And there we go. It's going to now recompile our SBPKG file, which is now ready to be deployed to the SharePoint itself. And let's actually do that. So let me open up the SharePoint apps catalog. Let's not actually close that connection. Let's put that one on the side. Let's go in here. We can see that that's the HelloWorld web part in the solution was the one which was actually recompiled. So SharePoint solution HelloWorld SBPKG. And let's get actually that one deployed to the app catalog. It's going to notice that, hey, there's already another same file in the library. So let's replace that. And after this one, we have actually the latest client-side solution now available within our deployment. So if we now go and have a look on the fact that we are not actually rendering anything in the, well, we're not hosting the local host in our local host machine. And then in our SharePoint, we had this one page, and let's refresh the page. We can still see that the web port is actually coming and rendering properly, regardless of the fact that the local host isn't rendering properly. So now if we do an F12 as opening up the developer tools, we can see that the information, if we refresh this one, we can see that the information is coming from the Azure side. So the sources, and there's our source, SPFX tutorials, AzureEdge.net, and there's our HelloWorld web part container. And in there, we have two JavaScript files which are being loaded, which are essentially then containing the information which is responsible for rendering the UI of the client-side web part. And that's it for this particular tutorial. Now, one thing to notice here. So in our client-side web part, when we actually encapsulated or built our package in the temp deploy folder, this is where we have these 3 different JavaScript files available. If you would be hosting your stuff somewhere else rather than Azure, you would be just essentially copying these 3 files to a specific location and make sure that the CDN base path is pointing to that one. So if you're using, let's say, Amazon or whatever third-party provider to host your JavaScript files, or you can actually host these in the SharePoint as well. You'll just make sure that the CDN base path is pointing to the location where those JavaScript files are, and then you recompile, deploy the package, and you'll be good to go. So all of the steps what we did related on Azure is only if you are looking into hosting the JavaScript files in the Microsoft Azure side. You can absolutely host this in any other location as well. But that's it. And let's move into another tutorial related on jQuery after this one. But that completes our HelloWorld web part tutorials. We had 4 of them. We created the web part. We connected that to the SharePoint. We used the mocking for local web workbench access. And then we actually hosted the web part in SharePoint as well. And then we finally hosted or deployed the web part to the CDN as well. So it's kind of a production ready deployment of the web part. But thanks for watching, and let's continue with the following tutorials.